Hello everyone and welcome to Raquel Teaches Web Development. My name is Raquel and today I'm going to be teaching you a lesson on CSS and you're going to learn how to style backgrounds. Okay, so let's go to the friendly screen. And here you'll see just a plain screen with just a paragraph of text. I've made the text as large as I think necessary for you guys to see clearly, so I hope that's okay. If not, please leave me a comment below and I can be sure to fix that for future live streams. All right, so here we have a paragraph of text and I'm going to demonstrate to you the different CSS properties that can be used to style the background of this paragraph as well as of this page. So I'm going to go ahead to my code editor. And I already have a few things typed out here that I commented out. So I'm just going to be uncommenting them step by step so you can see what they are and how they work. All right. So the first the first way we're going to format the background is by using the property called background color. OK, and it's just background hyphen color. And the way you use it is that you can enter a hex color code. You can enter an RGBA. You can enter RGB, all kinds of color codes. You can even enter the name of a color, and that color will apply to the background of the element that you have selected. So in this instance, I have selected the paragraph element, and I want to apply this background color, which is like a darkish beige, to the paragraph. So let's go ahead and save these changes, and then let's see what it looks like. Okay, so now when I refresh this screen, what we'll see is that color has now been applied as a background to the paragraph. Okay, so that's how background color is used. You can just enter any color code, any format you prefer, and that color will be applied to the background of the element. Now, one other thing to keep in mind about background color is that it can also be combined with a property called opacity. Right? And so opacity is really what makes it sheer or translucent or see-through, but that's what it is. It's the intensity of the color, the solidness, so to speak, of a color and how it appears as the background. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to uncomment this value for opacity, and right now I'm having it set to 0.5. The values for opacity can vary from anywhere from 0.1 all the way up to 1.0. And it doesn't just have to be, one decimal place. You can put 0.55, 0.36, whatever you feel necessary to achieve the look you want. So, but for our example, I'm just going to set the opacity to 0.5. And now we're going to go back to the page and we're going to refresh that to see what it looks like. And so now you see that the opacity has lightened it up or made it a little bit more see-through, so to speak. Okay, and so that's the look that it achieves when you make adjustments to the opacity value in CSS. All right, but I'm actually going to go back and comment that out because I don't like the way it looks, and I think it's going to be a little bit distracting for this tutorial. All right. And let me change the color of that font to white. So it's just going to be a little bit easier to read. All right, so let me just change that back. Okay, so now we can make it easier to read. And that's one thing you want to keep in mind, that once you start formatting backgrounds, you want to be sure that you don't disturb the aesthetic of the page and the look of how, what the intent is of the page. And you also want to make it accessible. You want to make sure that it's actually readable by people because after all, that's what they're coming to the web page for. Okay, so just keep that in mind, to be mindful of the combinations of colors that you use when it comes to these backgrounds and foregrounds. Okay, so the next background property that I want to demonstrate for you is using an image for a background. Okay, using an image. And so in our example, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be applying a background image to the body element of this page. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to uncomment is the background image property. All right, so it's just background hyphen image, and that property is given a value by indicating the location of the image that is to be used as the background. Okay, so in this case, when it comes to the background image property, you have to use the term URL parentheses, and in double quotes inside those parentheses, you're going to indicate the location of the image. In my example, the image used for the background is in the same folder or directory as this HTML document. And so I don't have to give any direction for that. But if you do have your images located in a different location, then you need to reference that accordingly. But in this example, again, it's on the same folder, so I just have to indicate the name of the image that I'm going to be using. So in this example, I'm using something called background image because I am so creative, right? And so now what we're going to do is we're going to switch back to the page, and let's refresh it to see what happens to the background. Okay, so what you see right now is an image. It's kind of like a multicolor, smoky image. And it's applied as a background, but what you start to see is that it is repeated, right? So it doesn't really look the way you probably expect it to look, but there are other properties that we can apply to the background for the body element that can change the way this is appearing on the page. So let's go back to the code editor. And so one of the other properties that can be used in combination with background image is called background repeat, right? So this determines whether or not it's repeated. There are different values, different settings available for the background repeat option. But in this case, what we're going to be using is the no repeat value, right? And there are other ways to repeat images. You can repeat them on the x-axis or y-axis. And you can determine how they're repeated. But in this case, I just want this background image to appear one time. So I'm going to be using the no repeat value. Okay, so let's save that and see what it looks like. All right, so now when I refresh here, we see that the image is only repeating once. That's great, right? That's getting towards the idea of what I want, but it still is a bit cut off, as we can see here, right? It only expands part of the way, and that's because that's the actual size of the image. But fortunately for us, CSS does provide a way to further manipulate this background image if we like, okay? And also just wanted to point out that this is actually a background image of the body element, and so that's why you see it peeking out above and to the sides of the paragraph element, because the paragraph element is contained within the body element. All right, so let's go back to the code editor, and what you'll see here is the last property I want to show you is called background size, right? So background size has a few values that are available for it. In this case, we're going to be using the cover value, but what the cover value will do is that it will apply the image so that it covers the entire area of the element that it is applied to. So in this case, since the background image is being applied to the body element, it's going to cover the entire body element, no matter what the size of the image, right? Meaning that even if the image is, say, for example, 600 by 600 pixels, it is going to stretch it out as proportionately as possible to cover the area of that element, right? So let's go ahead and save this, and then we're going to refresh the page so we can see what it looks like. So now when I refresh this, we'll see that the smoky image has now been stretched out to cover the entire element, which is the body element, which is the entire body of the page, right? And again, now we see it peeking out not just above the paragraph element that we also gave some background formatting to, but to the sides of it as well, right? Because of course it is covering the entire body. All right, so those are the basic ways that a background can be formatted in CSS. Now, I do want to also share a small tip, because this is something that I used to forget about when I first started learning CSS, and it will drive you nuts if you don't remember this, right? I'm just going to show you an example first so you can kind of see if you can figure out what I'm talking about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the code editor, and I'm going to go to the HTML element, and I'm just going to go here and create an empty paragraph, right? And so, and I'm going to give it an ID because I want to style this a little bit differently. So, right, so I'm going to give it an ID of P2. Okay, and let's just save that. So I've added a new paragraph element with no content, an ID of P2, right? So I want to give that a different background as well. So let's do this. Let's go to the style sheet. Let's select P2, and what we're going to do is give it a background color of, let's say, green. All right, I'm just typing the name here because I don't know all the codes. Oh, it's showing the code. That's nice. All right, so let's go back and refresh the page and see what happens here. Right? So what you expect to see is another paragraph underneath here with a green background. So let's refresh and see what happens. Look at that, nothing happens. Why is that? That is because a background is only visible when an element contains something. Right? It's only visible when an element contains something. So if you have a paragraph element here and it does not contain anything, it doesn't matter what background styling you give to it, until that paragraph element contains some kind of content, you won't be able to see the background formatting. So now let's do this. Let's just copy this lorem ipsum stuff here, and we're going to paste that into that second paragraph, right? We're going to save. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go back here and refresh. Okay, and now we see that we have a paragraph that has content, and now we can view the formatting that we applied to that second paragraph, which is green, which is what we expect. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that when you're applying any kind of background formatting using CSS to an element, that element needs to contain something. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to view the background formatting. Okay, so that is today's lesson. I hope that you found that helpful. If you did, please go ahead and hit like on this video. If you know of anyone that might find this useful, please go ahead and share the video. And if you'd like to be notified of future live streams, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified right away. Thanks again for taking time out of your day to watch this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. God bless.